Happy 2014 to all my valued students. Before we start today's free lesson, which you're going to get a lot of cool techniques and training production how-tos and how not to do's based on my now 27 years of Adobe training experience, which I started in 1987. So sit back, relax, but before you enjoy this free video you're about to watch, I just want to point out that udemy.com from now until January 7th has 70% off on all their courses. Now, if you want to get my all access course, I have a better deal than that, 75% off. 75% off, $15.99 is $3.99. For $3.99, you don't have to pay any more for training in your life. It's a one-time fee. You get all my production techniques. You get all my current courses. You get all my future courses. Now, if you can't afford that, then you can just simply go to my link that I'll provide at the bottom, and any one of my courses you can get for 70% off. The average price of my course is about $65, $70, so 70% off. That is a good chunk of change. Basically, you use Start Today coupon code. Remember, there's 2 T's in there for those of you that are typographically challenged or can't spell very well. So sit back, relax, enjoy this free video coming up. And if you really want to benefit and squeeze the sponge in 2014 and make all the money you possibly can, I want to get you in a position that when your client says, can you want to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can build a brochure. Yes, I can do a mobile app. Yes, I can edit your video. Yes, I can do a voiceover. Yes, I can do After Effects techniques. So my all access pass for basically $400 is going to set you for life for all the skills that you need to go out there and make yourself money. Now sit back, relax, crack your knuckles, have a beverage, and enjoy this free video. Happy 2014 and welcome to this exciting course and technique on how to build a responsive web design using no hand coding, letting Dreamweaver do all the work for you. These are techniques I can pretty much assure you will not see anyplace else from any other instructor because they're going to confuse the heck out of you by building code from scratch. I'm going to share with you how to squeeze the sponge on Adobe products, more specifically Adobe Dreamweaver, to basically have fun with this, make yourself a lot of money, and learn the product the right way. Now, I happen to be using Adobe Dreamweaver CC, Creative Cloud. Pretty much all the techniques I will share with you today, you can do in earlier versions of Dreamweaver. However, the interface in Adobe Dreamweaver Creative Cloud for building CSS rules, the interface is very different. Now, I highly suggest, if you're learning this anyway from the beginning, to don't invest time into old software. Okay, we can always make more money, but we can't make up more time. So I highly suggest you get your hands on either the free 30-day version of Adobe product, the Creative Cloud Suite from adobe.com for free, or you can get an educational version as well. Invest into your tool set. Don't go cheap. Don't say, well, I can't afford it. Well, you're not paying for it. Your client's paying for it. If you want to be serious about this, and you want to make yourself a bundle of money, then definitely take my advice. There's so much work out there, it's ridiculous, especially with mobile app development, which my course includes. Now, this is basically a little excerpt of what you're the type of training and a type of comprehensive understanding you're going to get by benefiting from my courses. So let's take this one step at a time. Right, we're going to set up a couple of basic CSS rules for our HTML5 page. This is an HTML5 page. I'm using Dreamweaver CC Creative Cloud, which Command and New, Control and New defaults to HTML5. If you're using an earlier version of Dreamweaver, you have to physically select HTML5 from the pull-down menu. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into saving the files and all that because I assume you know how to do that, and I've titled my document correctly. So the first thing I want to do is, in order to affect the body tag, I'm going to select the body tag. Now, here's where it's a little different in Creative Cloud. What I need to do is my panel's up here. I'm in the expanded version, and if you're not in the expanded version, I'll highly suggest you go there and reset it. The only difference is depending on your screen size, compact and expanded. That's really the only difference between these two settings. So here's what I want to do. The first thing I need to do is go to my CSS designer and click here and tell Dreamweaver where I want to put these CSS rule definitions. We want to define this in this page. Now, for those of you who've watched other videos on other companies, maybe lynda.com, you know, I hate to say this, but they teach you some bad stuff. You should not make an external style sheet if you're building a website from scratch. Let's think about this intuitively. If you use an external style sheet, how can you possibly Show your clients version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 if it's tied to the same external style sheet. The answer is you can't. So all the knucklehead clowns out there that teach you that technique is bad technique, because you can't make different versions if it's tied to the same external style sheets. Hence the words same and different don't coexist. So if you're building something from scratch, you want to have your CSS rules, just like I shared with you, part of this document. Now, when it's all signed off and approved by the client, by all means, we would then move it to an external style sheet. But when you're building from scratch, that's not what you do. So when I did that by clicking the plus symbol, if I go to code mode for a second, you'll notice it basically set up the HTML code for style sheets. So what I want to do is select the tag. In order to affect the tag, I need to select the tag. Select the source and click right down here. And I want to make a rule for the body. And the body rule that I'm going to make, category of type, T for type, I'm simply going to change the font family to, I don't know, Gotham, Helvetica. And I'm going to keep the color the same. Now keep in mind, I don't have to change it to black. It defaults to black. So stay away from redundancies when building your CSS. Now, for those of you that are new to this whole scenario, Dreamweaver by default creates Times Roman 16 pixels. So basically right now, this is font family Gotham 16 pixels. And I'm just going to leave that exactly where it is. Make a change, save a change. Now, here's what I want to share with you. We're just going to build the skeleton of our site using HTML5 division tags. We can use div tags. We're going to use div tags. We're also going to use HTML5 container tags, which consist of header, navigation tag, the aside tag, the I just lost my train of thought here. The article tag, the section tag, etc., etc. I'm going to share with you how to do this in a very, very simple way, but at the same time, your design will be very sophisticated because it'll work with percentages. Percentages is what we use for responsive design. Responsive design is what we're going to use for iPad, iPhone, Galaxy 500, etc., etc., etc. So here's what we need to do to get started. The next thing I'm going to do is after I select style again, I'm going to hit the plus symbol, and I'm going to create a series of rules for our HTML5 tags, which starts out with header. So I'm going to type in header, comma, and then I'm going to type nav, comma, and I'm going to type in section, comma, I'm going to type in article. Now, if you're not sure about the spelling of this, definitely spell it correctly, otherwise it's not going to work. Hit the comma, and I'm going to do the aside tag. Now, notice what's not part of this scenario is the footer tag. The footer tag is not going to be part of this scenario. Now, here's what I want to do. I've created a set of rules for these different tags, and you can do that quite simply by separating with a comma. So header, comma, nav, comma. These are HTML5 defined tags. Hit the return key. So here's what I want to be able to accomplish. First of all, if I make any one of these tags, I want it to have a width of 100%. So I'm going to type in 100%. Okay? So that gets that started. Now, in addition to that, if I have an HTML5 tag in place, another thing I want to do is at the bottom of my HTML5 tag, I want to separate each HTML5 tag with 20 pixels of margin space at the bottom. I'm going to set that as well. Okay, so it's going to be 100%. It's going to be 20 pixels of margin space at the bottom, and I want to float these HTML5 tags to the left. So I'm going to come down here and just click right there. So if I click right there, that's the left. If I click right there, that's the right. So I'm going to click to the left, and I'm going to clear to the right. I'm sorry. I'm going to float to the left, and I'm going to clear left. Actually, I'm going to clear right. Okay, so very important step here, how I set this up by default. So HTML5, if I have any tag that falls under this area, header, nav, section, article, site, it's going to basically benefit from those properties. So let's get started with this, right? So here's what we're going to do. And this is a really, really simple technique. This is so simple, it's frighteningly simple. We're going to type in the name of our HTML5 tags, lowercase, no space. So we're going to type in header, spacebar, followed by nav, spacebar, followed by section, spacebar, spelling correct, followed by article. Just make sure you spell these correctly, otherwise it's not going to work. Aside, followed by footer. Make a change, save a change. Now, important step. We don't have a container wrapper tag yet, so we're going to do that next. We're going to select all of our content, and the simplest way to do that is to select the body tag. Then with the insert menu, we can insert div. So if I come up to here, we're going to insert a div. And we're going to give this div a name. We're going to name it wrapper. This is its ID. Wrapper with a W, by the way. Years ago, I had a student that did wrapper with an R, and I said no, as in GIF wrap, not as in yo-yo wrap. So we're going to give this a wrapper. Okay, now, here's an important step. If you're new to Dreamweaver, by default, notice it has some kind of padding and margin space up here. I don't want to have incidental padding and margin space. So here's how I'm going to solve that. I'm going to create what's called the asterisk tag, the wildcard tag, the universal tag. This tag will talk to all HTML and HTML5 tags, because what my objective here is I want to set those tags to 0. I don't want to have any margin and any padding space. So I'm going to select the tag. I'm going to come right down here. I'm at the plus symbol, and I'm going to type in the asterisk symbol. So what that's going to do is I'm going to create an asterisk that has no padding and no margin by default. So if I click right here, just by clicking right there is going to make all my padding and margin be 0. And I want to make my padding be also 0. And I just need to click there a few times. Now to make sure that that did that correctly, I'm going to go in here and make sure the asterisk tag, see right now, sometimes it gets a little clumsy. It didn't set that up, so I'm going to set that to 0 and then click here. So now everything is going to be set to 0, and if I go to my code again, you can now see that everything, well, see, it's still not working here. So I'm going to set this to 0, there it goes. So sometimes it just gets a little clumsy with the new version. I'm going to do the same thing here as well. I'm going to set that to 0. And just make sure that's locked into place. Now, what you want to do is go to your code and just make sure that it did exactly that. It set the padding to 0 and the margin to 0. Again, this gets a little clumsy unless this highlights and does it the right way. Hey, I didn't make the software up. So make a change, save a change. So what I've done here is I got rid of all the extra space that I don't really need. And if I need that space, like for paragraph spacing, etc., I can put that space back in by creating a rule for that. Now watch how simple this is. Right now, these are simply just words on a page. In fact, they're not paragraphs or nothing. To demonstrate that, if I go to my code, you'll see that it's just a bunch of text on a page. There's no paragraph, there's nothing. The only thing that this has is inside the wrapper, and that's fine for now. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create rules for these tags. Now, generically, I already have a rule for if it is a header, nav, section, article, etc. But right now, these are neither one of those tags. So here's a very simple way to tag your content by letting Dreamweaver do all the heavy lifting for you. Now, keep in mind that this has to be spelled correctly, which it is. Okay, so I'm going to double-click header. I'm going to copy that and hit Command-key T, or Control-T for Windows. Command-T, Control-T is Quick Tag Editor, and I'm just going to paste that in there. Hit the return key. So now that's set up to be a header tag. So notice that it's 100%, and the distance between this header tag and below is 20 pixels, because that's what we told it to do. Margin space at the bottom, 20 pixels. How cool is that? So now I'm going to double click the nav tag, copy, Command-T, Control-T for Windows, and paste that in as well. And there's the nav tag. Now keep in mind these are generic CSS rules. We're not getting into specifics right now. I want you to walk before you can run. Now this next step is a little bit more brain power here. What I want to do is I want to make the article part of the section tag. Okay, my in-depth course, by the way, whether it's the All Access course or my Dreamweaver CS6 or Dreamweaver Creative Cloud course on Udemy, goes into great detail on all of this. I don't want you to think I'm skipping ahead. I'm sharing with you a very powerful concept. So I want the article tag to be inside of the section tag. So watch how I can do this. I'm going to double-click section. I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to select article and section and Command-T and paste. So now the article and section are back in or inside the article tag. Now the article wants to be in its own tag, so the same thing. Double click copy, Command-T, paste, return key once, return key twice. Therefore, if you look down here, articles inside of section, that's exactly what I want. Now, if you've never seen techniques like this before, it doesn't surprise me. I basically share with you my time-tested production techniques of squeezing the sponge, making this so simple that it really is this simple. I've had students spend a lot of money to train with me and go, whoa, that was simple. Yes, it was, because I've made it simple. My job is to basically break it all down for you and make it so simple, because I want you to concentrate on one thing: pleasing your client and making money. I don't want you to have to think about how to do all this. If you're taught the right way, you'll do it the right way. So let's move on to the aside tag. Double click, copy, Command T, copy, paste, the aside tag. Footer tag, double click, copy, paste. And there's the footer tag. Now, the footer tag, if you look here for a second, the footer tag is going up into the aside tag because the footer tag technically doesn't have any rules applied to it as of yet. So we can do that very simply by selecting the tag, selecting the source, hitting the plus symbol, and I'm not concerned about the word wrapper. I only want to create a rule for footer. So it's implied that it's inside the wrapper. So what I want to do here is two things. First of all, I want my footer to have a white typeface. I'm going to change this to white, which is pound symbol FFF. And I want the line height to be, now for those of you that are desktop publishers, this is known as leading. I want the line height to be pixels, and I want the line height to be 50 pixels. Good. And I want the text alignment to be in the center. Great. So this is going to vertically align the text to be in the center, and I want the background color to be, I don't know, we'll pick this dark orangish color for the footer. Let's make it a little darker. And there you go. Now, you'll notice that footer is still basically going into the aside area. Now, the reason being because footer doesn't understand the asides there. So what footer needs to have based on these choices here is I need to go down to footer, and based on these choices, I need to clear this as a left float. So based on these choices, I need to clear left. And therefore, footer goes at the bottom. Okay? So we're starting to basically cook with gas here. Can't believe I said that. That's an old expression that my parents and grandparents used to say. I can't believe I said that. Anyway. All right, now the other thing, let's do this too, is footer. Let's make the font, typically a footer would be a little bit smaller, so let's make this. The default is 1M, so let's make this smaller than 1M. Let's make this 0.8 M's. So therefore it'll be that much smaller. Now we haven't created a rule for the wrapper, so let's go ahead and do that. And watch how I do this, very important. We're creating a responsive design. So here's how we basically can set up the wrapper. Select the tag, select the source, and select the rule. So wrapper. So wrapper's going to have a width. Wrapper's going to have a width of 100%. So watch how I do this. Very important step here. I can basically take it, drag it out as well. I can just drag it. So we're going to make that 100%. I meant to say percentage, not pixels. So let's put this percentage in there. Now, the maximum width, and this is very important for responsive design, its width is 100%, but the maximum width is going to be 960 pixels because I want this to be responsive design. So later on, as I build media queries, I can have media queries for 768, which is my iPad, and 320, which is my iPhone, etc., etc. But this is how it's set up by default. Now, in addition to that, the margin space for the wrapper tag is going to be set up to auto to the left. So I'm going to type in auto, and auto to the right. So therefore, for those of you that haven't done this before, it will automatically appear in the center. So if I go to live view, you will see that my wrapper will automatically be in the center of my page. Pretty cool stuff. Right now, I'm not connected to an FTP site, but if I go to File, Preview in Browser, Firefox, you could start to see, actually this is my mistake on that. Didn't mean to do that. My humble apologies. I did have it set up to FTP from a previous course, which I forgot to turn off. So now if I go to Firefox, it will simply just bring up the page. Okay, so let's review that again. So if I go back into Dreamweaver, so back in Dreamweaver, File, Preview in Browser, Firefox. And there you go. You'll notice that my page is in the center, vertically aligned to the center. Right, now here's the super cool part. What I want to do is I'm just going to fill in some of this content with dummy text. So I'm just going to type in It's Amorum. And I'm just going to go and grab some dummy text to put in here. I'll just grab this paragraph, and I'll use the same paragraph for everything just to save a little bit of time. Okay, now here's an important step. Right now, this is not tagged with anything. This is just text again. It's not a paragraph. It's not anything. But when I do go ahead and make this an H1 tag or an H2 tag, etc., and I'll explain SEO to you in just 1 second, I don't want the text to smash up against the edge of the box. Okay, now I can solve that problem by giving the HTML5 or div tag padding, but if I do that, I didn't have to subtract. If I'm putting a div tag next to another div tag, meaning a float left or float right, and I'm dealing with percentages, if I make one 60%, one 40%, well, that fits into 100%. 60 and 40 is 100. However, if I give it padding space, it's going to knock it out of the box, so I have to minus that. Now, to avoid having to do that, watch what I can do here. I'm going to go back to my CSS rules. I'm going to select, I'm just going to select the source, and I'm going to create a series of rules for paragraph and H1 tags. And here's how I can do this. I'm going to click right there and type in the P tag, P for paragraph, comma, H1, comma, H2, comma, H3, comma, H4, comma, H5. I rarely use the H6 tag, so I'm going to skip that. Now, here's what I want to accomplish. If, in fact, I have any tags that fall under these rules, or rules fall under these tags, paragraph, H1, H3, I want it to have some kind of padding to the left and the right. Not margin space, but padding space, and I want to use percentages. So I'm going to do 2% of padding to the left and 2% of padding to the right. Now, the advantage of doing this is I will not have to then subtract the width of the div tag or the width of the HTML5 tag to compensate for it fitting into place. So it's a really, really cool production technique. So watch this. For SEO purposes, something you may want to take a note on. Okay, any beginning piece of text, with the exception of nav and footer, should be an HTML H1 tag for SEO purposes. So you can do that very simply by clicking the tag and coming down here, select the tag, and make this a H1 tag. Now, the simplest way to do that is to select the tag and hit Command 1. So notice it automatically gives it some padding because I have a rule structure for that. See, I'm thinking ahead here. So I have a rule structure that says if you are a P or an H1 or H2, give myself some padding to the left, 2% to the left and 2% to the right. So the nav tag, I'm just going to make this a paragraph tag. Simple shortcut, Command-Shift-P. Command-Shift-P will make it a paragraph. Section tag, Command 1. Article tag, Command 1. Aside tag, Command 1, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so for SEO purposes, the first piece of text of any new div tag or any new HTML5 tag should start out with an H1 tag followed by an H2 if in fact that's what you want to do. Okay, so it's really that type of thinking. All right, now, here's what I want to accomplish. Okay, I want to put the nav to the right of the header. So I want navigation, the header, to take up maybe 70%, and my nav to take up 30%, hence 70 and 30 is 100%. Well, let's explore how we can do this. Now, keep in mind that I have rule structures for header, nav, section, article, side, but I want to also create rules specific for that particular tag by itself, to give its width or to give its height, etc., etc. So here's how I can do that. I'm going to select the tag. I want to affect the tag. You need to select the tag. Select the source and hit the plus symbol. I'm going to create a tag for header. Again, I'm not concerned about it saying wrapper. I don't want to say wrapper this, wrapper that, and wrapper a gazillion times. I just want to say header. And header, based on these properties, I want to make header width be percentages. So it's going to be percentage and it's going to be 70%. And there you go. There's my 70% width header. Make a change, save a change. Good habit to get into. Now, I want to put nav right next to here, so I'm going to select the nav tag. In order to affect the nav, I need to select the nav. Select the nav tag, select the source, hit the plus symbol, and the same thing. I don't need it to say wrapper. And I'm going to hit the return key and make this be a width of percentages and 30%. Okay. So 70% and 30% basically is going to put that right to the right. My humble apologies. I noticed that I made a slight mistake. When I originally made my rule structure for everything, when I made the rule structure for the HTML5 tags, etc., the HTML5 tags, I meant to clear left, not right. I probably wasn't paying attention when I did that, so my apologies on that. So when you make your rule structure for header, nav, section, article, not footer, by the way, it's flow to left, clear left, flow to left, clear left, by default. Now, a few seconds ago, I made this 70%, and I made this 30%. Well, 70 and 30 is 100. So why is this not appearing over here? Well, because it's getting its marching orders from these sets of rules here. And this is saying, hey, clear to the left. Well, in this particular case for the nav tag, I don't want it to clear to the left. So I go back to the nav tag itself, and for clear based on these choices, I don't want to have it clear. So I'm going to say none. And it's going to put it right there where it needs to go. How cool is that? Now, this next step is really very powerful. Here's what I want to be able to do. And again, I'm sharing with you technique here. We would do the full step-by-step hand-holding in my full course that you need to pay for. I mean, just like you don't work for free, hey, I don't work for free, nor do I encourage you to work for free. Volunteer work, great, that's good. Donating to the homeless, that's a good thing. Donating to people who are starving, that's a great thing, okay? But don't work for free, okay? So, you support me, I support you. So here's what I want to do. It's really cool production technique. I want my section tag to have the same width as my header tag, and I want the aside tag to have the same width as the nav tag. Well, how can I possibly do that? Well, watch this. I'm going to double click the word section. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to my styles and I'm going to select my header. And based on these choices, control click Macintosh, right click Windows, I'm going to duplicate that header tag. And there's my new header tag, except I'm going to put in the word section. Is that smart or what? Is that brilliant or what? Okay, so now section has the same width as header. If in fact that's what you wanted to do, this is just squeezing the sponge on the software. So now I can do the same thing with the aside tag. I'm a lazy guy. I'm very motivated when it comes to making money and producing things for my clients and helping my students, but I'm very lazy when it comes to software. I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to copy that word aside, go up to the nav tag rule, so select the tag, select its rule structure, which is right down here under nav, and again, either right-click Windows, control-click Macintosh, and it's going to make a duplicate of that tag, and I'm going to paste in the aside tag. So therefore, it follows the same exact rule structure. Now it puts the aside tag over to the right. Now again, this is just touching the iceberg. I've just given you 25 minutes of my time for free to share with you how simple it is to do this. Now obviously there's a lot more involved in this, so I highly suggest you take advantage of what I'm trying to help you with. Okay, if you really want to be good at this, okay, there's a lot of people out there wasting their time watching all these free classes and all this writing code after code after code. So my motto is this: you want to learn how to write code, or you want to learn how to make money. If you want to make money, sign up for my courses. If you want to write code, do a Google search. There's plenty of courses out there that are going to waste your time creating code. That's what Dreamweaver does. Dreamweaver does all this for you. Now, there's some instances, yes, for JavaScript, there's some jQuery functions and PHP calls, absolutely. But let's walk before we can run. And Dreamweaver will do most of the work for you. My name is Robert Farrell. Thank you very much for being here. 2014, Carpe Diem.